Welcome to Talking Mopars, episode number 154. This is part one of two of the live stream that I recorded on Saturday night with my friend Bill Adams, who is the president of the Chrysler Club. We talked about the early days of Chrysler, Walter P. Chrysler himself, a little SEMA talk, and we ended the show talking about muscle cars at the Strip. The first part of the show was me engaging with the audience until Bill showed up, talking about my Roadrunner and my van. But shortly thereafter, Bill showed up and we talked Mopars. So, without further ado, if you are a Mopar enthusiast, then you are in the right place. Don't go anywhere. You're tuned into the best Mopar enthusiast-driven podcast on planet Earth, and I'm your host, Chris Albrecht, better known as the Mopar Hunter, and this is Talking Mopars.
You're listening to Talking Mopars with the Mopar Hunter, your direct connection to all things Mopar.
What's up, everybody? We are live for another exciting episode of Talking Mopars. It's been a while since I went live. I think the last time I went live, I was in the car or something, getting ready to go on a trip. But I have somebody that may be joining us later. I'm waiting to see. He was saying like a half an hour, so at 9 o'clock. So I suppose we can just hang out for a little bit and just shoot the you know what. I may post a link in the chat. So if you want to join me on screen and talk for a little bit until my guest shows up, that would be cool. Let me what's up? What's up, John? What's up, Dutch? Um yeah, like I said, it's been a while since I've jumped on here. Tall John, the legend himself, in the building. It's been a while since I did a live, and everybody's everybody's doing lives now. It's fun. It's great. I love seeing so many live streams in the car community. I think it's great, and they're always a lot of fun. And it's like the ecosystem of these live streams is really fun. And I don't know. It's something that I'm really happy to be a part of. And there's if you have a YouTube channel or a Facebook page, go live, talk to your audience, talk to your people, and the amount of connections you can get are just amazing, and it's a lot of fun. Plus, it's a little bit more personable, you know. I'm glad it's something that I decided to start doing a while back, and you know, seeing how many live streams there are, and how many familiar faces always show up. What's up, Matt? Um, it just it brings a whole different dynamic to social media and getting to know your audience. And I think it's a lot of fun. A lot of people have been reaching out to me about the show, saying they're happy that I've been bringing back the old format with Project Car of the Week, high performance parts, and listener stories and stuff. After a while, the listener stories they started to die off. I was like, man, people not listening to my show or what? Um, but I still encourage people to send in their stories. I actually got a fun message today, so I guess we'll do a listener story right now. It's a really short one. It was just a fun message from a gentleman named William. He said, "Hello there. I recently started listening to your podcast on Spotify and would like to say that I'm a huge fan of it so far. Thank you, William. I'm only five-ish episodes in. Only five in, dude. He just started. This is great. I'm only five-ish episodes in, and I'm hooked as a Mopar fan myself. I have been leaning towards the more forgotten Mopars of the 90s. I currently have a 1991 Daytona with the Shelby trim and turbo 2.5, but not numbered, as well as a 93 Shadow with an NA 2.2, as well as the daily drivers, which are an '07 Dodge Caliber and a 2016 Dodge Dart, as well as a 99 Durango. I didn't realize that I was missing this podcast in my life until now, and I just want to say keep up the great work." That's awesome. I've always wanted Talking Mopars to be not just a place for, the muscle car guys, but obviously I'm a big fan of the trucks. So truck guys, and then, huge fan of the front wheel drive turbo Mopars as well. And any Mopar enthusiast, even the modern enthusiasts, are welcome on Talking Mopars. So I just got that message. So it was really nice to see that people are still discovering the show. I've been doing it for several years now, and people still reach out to me and say that they just found the show. So that just it blows my mind. I'm really critical on myself because I need to get more of my content on YouTube. But I did an experiment. I did a YouTube experiment, and the experiment was to see if just posting the little shorts, YouTube shorts, um, would get me more subscribers. And it skyrocketed my subscriber. I've been trying to get to 1,000 subscribers for a long time. I just hit 500 earlier this year. And, considering the lack of content that I post on my YouTube page, I was really surprised to see the subscriber rate jump. I think I'm at like 955 or something like that, which is cool. Um, but there's something to those short videos. I went to recently. I went to Wildcat Auto Wrecking in Oregon, and the same weekend I went to the Brothers Collection Museum, and I got so much content from both places, and it has been really fun sharing it because it was such an epic weekend. You go to a wrecking yard, and who doesn't love a wrecking yard? You know what I mean? Especially Mopar only, so it's just Mopar parts everywhere. And I know Dustin was mad. Dutch Guy's Garage was mad because I was passing up all the F bodies and stuff. I do have I do have some content for the F bodies there, Dustin. Um, but it was really fun checking out all the old Mopars at the wrecking yard, and then after seeing a wrecking yard full of Mopars, salvaged Mopars, I go to the Brothers collection that has some of the most sought after Mopars on earth. It's like it was I was definitely mentally exhausted when that weekend was over. But see what's going on in the chat. Sort of stock Mopars. What's up, Jeremy? Um, the road. So Jeremy says, "What's going on, Chris? How's that beautiful Roadrunner doing?" So I've been putting in parts orders. I don't need that much. As it turns out, the upholstery for it's going to be kind of hard to get, um, but that's okay. I do have the rear seat is still upholstered. It just looks like shit. The front seats were reupholstered at some point with some weird material that they're basically plain Jane seat covers, essentially. So they don't have the original pattern or whatever. Um, so that's going to annoy me, but it's got seats. So carpet, just little things. I did order a interior screw kit, which came, and then a underhood hardware kit, which also came, just because I have a lot of the hardware for everything. But the problem is I have, boxes and boxes of parts, and I didn't want to waste too much time digging through those boxes and trying to find, the bolts that go here and the bolts that go there. So I thought I'd make it easy on myself. And as I go through, I'm going to make sure that I catalog all the bolts and stuff that I find so that I have extras. So I ordered those two hardware kits just to make my life a little bit easier. Because I have a lot of stuff that just needs to be bolted up. And I went to my storage unit the other day, got all the parts I needed. The only thing that I don't have at my house right now are the two front seats because they were just going to take up space. Um, so I went out to the uh, garage today intending to work on the Roadrunner, right? Because I kind of need to get it ready to go for March and Muscle Cars at the Strip. And I got out there and I started moving stuff around. And my garage is pretty small. It's a 3-car garage, but I have the car in there lengthwise so that I can actually get around it. And it's still too damn big for the garage. But uh, I have this giant 36-gallon fuel tank for the van because I'm in the middle of redoing the entire fuel system for it. And I looked at that. I was moving the 36-gallon tank and I was like, why don't I just put this fucking thing in the van just to get it done and out of the way so I stop moving it? So I finished plumbing the lines for that, got the tank up and in under the van. And at this point, I was like, all right, I guess I'm working on the van today to get a bunch of the parts that I have laying around just done and on the van and out of the way. Um, so I I'm notoriously bad about starting certain projects. Like with my blue tin grill, I started rewiring it and then I stopped in the middle of the project and got distracted with some other stuff. And it just screws me up every time I do that. I have this hard time, and I'm not going to do it with the Roadrunner. That's exactly why once I got into the fuel system shit on the van, I was like, all right, the Roadrunner's going to have to wait until tomorrow because I always get half ass into something and then I stop. So I was like, let me just finish the fuel system on the van. So this is where things started to go wrong for me. It's a 36-gallon plastic tank, so it's not that crazy, but the van is outside on the ground, and I'm a big guy. And getting underneath that thing, holding this tank up to try to get the 3 straps on it were it was a giant pain in the ass, and I didn't wanna I was joking with some friends earlier today. Shout out to Paul and Scott. Uh, I was telling them what happened, and, Paul was like, "Why don't you just call me?" Basically, and I was like, "Well, I know I'm gonna be calling some friends for help with the Roadrunner, so I didn't wanna use up those credits." So I'm underneath this van, and I'm holding up this 36-gallon tank trying to get it all screwed in there, and I get 2 straps on, and I go for the 3rd strap, the final strap, and then I realize, "Fuck, this strap was supposed to go on first." And that's when I had all the lines hooked up and shit. So I was like, "Ah," and I was like, "You know what? Screw it. I'm just gonna put this one I'm gonna put it in wrong, and I'm just gonna put it in, and that way it's up and out of the way." And I was like, "No, let's just do it right, asshole." So I took the straps down, and it was like an hour of me fighting the thing to get it up there, and then I finally get it strapped in, and I forgot to put the first strap on before the other 2. So got that dropped back down, and, I was fighting it. So, to make a long story short, the tank is in. I need to finish plumbing the it got dark here really quick today, and I got a late start. Um, so the tank is in, it's plumbed. Everything around the tank is plumbed. I just need to go, and run the line to the front. And, shout out to Dutch guys for giving me the hint about the vent line off of, so the fuel filter I have has an in, to the filter and then an out to the carb, and there's also a vent tube. Um, so I'll be taking that and running that back to the vent line on the van's fuel tank. Um, so the van will be plumbed for fuel. I still have to install the flip top. I got a flip top conversion, or adapter, so that it can have a flip top gas lid. So that'll be fun. But it's just it's just something I just wanted to get done and out of the way. So tomorrow I just have to run the lines, no problem at all. I'm gonna put in a secondary fuel filter. Um, I tried to blow out all the fuel lines and stuff, but something just I just feel like I'm gonna put it all together with the one filter, and I'm gonna regret it. So I'm gonna put in a secondary fuel filter along the frame rail, and then one up by the engine, and then hopefully, that first filter will catch any residual shit in the back. Um, but the fuel system will be done. And the Roadrunner, the thing I love about this Roadrunner compared to my projects in the past is that basically everything's there. And um, for those of you that don't know, I traded my beloved Mr. Norm's Tin Grill truck uh for this Roadrunner, and it's basically an assembly required car. Paint and body work's done, engine is rebuilt and in the car, and now all I have to do is basically put together the interior and get the engine plumbed and all that stuff, all that fun stuff. But after looking at all the parts and seeing what I had, it's going to be relatively easy. The hardest thing that I have to deal with is I realized that the transmission that's in it's a 4-speed. The transmission that's in it's from a 68 Charger, so I need to take the tail housing off and put on the correct tail housing. So that sounds easy, but I realized how much of a pain in the ass it's going to be with the transmission in the car. So I'm probably just going to pull the 4-speed out, and I don't think it needs to be rebuilt, but I probably should rebuild it. But I'm not a transmission guy, and I'm not going to attempt, especially since I'm kind of on a time crunch. I'm not going to attempt to rebuild this transmission myself. Thankfully, I've used a local transmission shop for when my my automatic went out in my turbo diesel truck, and I called them because I was looking into passing and Brewers, and shipping the transmission there and back, and then having it rebuilt and all that fun stuff was going to cost me like 2 or 3 grand all in, new transmission. Um, so I called a local guy that I trust that works on Mopars and stuff, and he told me basically $800 plus the cost of a rebuild kit, which I'm already going to buy. So it's basically $800 in labor, and then I'll have a fresh 833 for the car. So I was like, all right, that'll be easy. Then I don't have to worry about it. have it built, it's got a warranty, come back, throw it in the car. Um, so because at first I was a little cocky about it. I was like, I can rebuild this transmission, no problem. So I was doing some research on it because my friends over at Car Tech Books actually sent me the book that Jamie Passon wrote about overhauling 833s and stuff. So I was looking through it and I was like, it could be done, but I don't want to feel rushed at all because in order to get this car done by March, with all the other stuff I have to do, rebuilding a transmission, I've never done it before, and admittedly, I could just see myself fucking up and having something catastrophic happen. So I was like, I'll rebuild an 833 another day. So I'm going to have this one rebuilt for about $1,000. And that'll give me the peace of mind. So I can just, the tail housing, all that shit's going to be done. All the seals are going to be done. The only thing that would change the price is if any of the gears are bad or anything like that, but I don't think they are. But I do want the bearings changed and all the seals changed. So I do have all the linkage, all that shit. I've got the pistol grip. um, so the Roadrunner should be relatively um, easy to get going. Uh, doing a quick email here. So interior, pretty simple. It's all there. The other hard issue that I have that I'll probably get help with is the windshield, the glass. Um, I would hate to get it all together myself and then drive down the road and hear it whistling. That would piss me off. So I'd probably like to have the windshield done professionally. Um, I'm sure a lot of people would be like, "Oh, just fucking, just do it." But I think the Roadrunner. Actually, I know the Roadrunner will be in Vegas. I promise you that. Um, if I fail getting the Roadrunner to Vegas, then I'll be a complete failure. But it, it, I don't want to jinx myself. But Murphy's Law um, tends to bite me. But I don't think this car's everything is legit on it. It's not like I bought it from a stranger. I know the guy I got it from. I have all the receipts for the engine. Everything checks out. Um, I fully expect this thing to be running very, very soon. Um, I'm waiting. I just put in an order with Mancini Racing for the electronics that I need. Uh, I was looking at the bulkhead connector, and it looks like a couple of the pins are a little burned. So I'm a little concerned with that. I need to figure out which terminals are burned so I can figure out, what happened there. But hopefully not that big of a deal. I do have the original wiring, so I'm going to look at the wiring. Um, that was what I was going to do today was pull all the parts down and because I have a list and maybe when I have it next to me, uh, I'll show you guys. But just because I'm horrible about blindly tackling a project, and I wanted to make sure this was done in an organized fashion. Uh, I looked at the car and wrote down everything I think I thought I needed to do, and then my friend Tad, you guys all know Tad, um, he had a list of an assembly guide that he used for his Super Bee. So I reached out to him and I said, "Hey man, you got that list?" And he ended up finding it, sent it to me, and I looked at it and I was pretty close, but there was a couple little things that I missed. But it's a full assembly from bare shell all the way down. And there was a couple things that were out of order, but basically I'm going to try going from the front of the car back. The first things first, get the engine done and fire this car off. I need to know that it runs. Um, the suspension needs to be rebuilt in the front. Rear is good. It's got new leaf springs. I just need to throw in the new air shocks. This is going to be a street machine. You know what I mean? This ain't going to be a race car or anything like that. Uh, so that's the plan for that. Um, the car will. I'm super confident in the car running and driving in Vegas. Um, to be honest, if in full transparency, the biggest issue I'm having right now is financially because somehow Facebook fucked up my taxes, and I blame them. But it's only because apparently when I got monetized on Instagram, I sent them all the tax information, and it doesn't coincide with the shit I sent for Facebook's monetization, which doesn't make sense to me because I have it's all the original information. So I don't know if I used the wrong EIN, um, because my company is an LLC, but I'm taxed as a single member LLC. So essentially, all my business money funnels through my personal taxes, and something in the paperwork got fucked up. So I've made about $5,000 in the past, we'll say 6 months. I haven't gotten a payout from Facebook since August. And I really need that $5,000 because it's funding the um the fuel to get to Vegas, and it's going to buy a couple of the little things that I need. Cuz one thing I was hoping to have the car done in time. I'd like to have it ready in February because I want to send it to have it I want to have a single stage paint correction done on it just because the paint's really nice, but it does have some light swirls. I don't know if that was from the car cover I threw on it, even though I thought I bought a really nice car cover, and when I pulled it off, I was like, "Are those swirl marks? Did I fucking do that?" Um, so I'm just gonna make sure that the paint's perfect, and then I'm gonna have it ceramic coated. There's a place locally that does like Lamborghinis and shit, but that's like 1,800 bucks. But it adds a layer of protection to the paint and makes it easier to clean and shit. So I'm gonna do that if I can get this payout. So I don't know if you guys have ever dealt with Facebook, but their payout system, if you need support, it sucks. I've gone back and forth with them at least 28 times and I can't get a straight answer. They keep just sending me um like a canned response. Like, "Oh, go to the Pay Hub center and get support." I'm like, "That's what I just did to reach out to you guys." So, I have a bunch of money just waiting there. Once I get that shit cleared up and I get the money, then we're off to the races. Um, so we'll see what happens there. What's going on in the chat? Other Johnny Mopar with an H is in the house. What's up? Lance, what's up? He just came over from the talk. I just got done doing Talking Paranormal, where we were talking about the Philadelphia experiment. That was fun. Um, Mo Party. Yep. We were at Mo Party. That's for sure. Lance says, "You may not know from the other podcast, but I have a single turbo 500 cube wedge, 68 satellite, and used to have a turbo 265 Hemi, 3 on the tree, 71 Dodge utility." That's awesome, dude. Yeah, hell yeah. Alex was just at Wildcat. 45 minutes from Wildcat. Damn, I might have to send you there. Send you there. Uh, yeah, they got a lot of cool stuff there, man. Um, Fun to just go, and they're super cool about just letting you hang out and walk through the yard and stuff. Um, Stefan, what's up? Dutch guys, it's all right. Gave me an idea for when I go to the massive old yard again. I'm going to skip the muscle and just do the laser face. You probably should. Um, that's funny. I kind of knew as I was going through that yard. Every time I saw an F body, every time I see an F body, I can't help but think of my friend Dustin from Dutch Guy's Garage. Go help the guy out too. He's struggling on YouTube. He cannot get to 1,000 subscribers. We need to get that guy monetized. Zane says, "Hi from New Zealand. Was at Mopar car show today. Would like to post you some footage. I was surprised to see a 300H there today. Very rare model, 1970s. You know, I had a locally. There's a guy who I know that has a 300H convertible, and it's the Hearst 300. Apparently, that car isn't supposed to exist, but it does. I've seen it. There's documentation on it and everything. And somebody that's pretty well known in the automotive community basically called me a liar and said it doesn't exist. And I was like, that's not true at all. It is a very real car. Um, Coffee says, you're running out of time on the Roadrunner. Yep. Go ahead and think that, buddy. It's actually, we got plenty for my car. I got plenty of time. I know you got plenty of time. It's the guys like Jeremy um, from Shade Tree that he's got a bunch of irons in the fire. And so for those of you that don't know, there's a little challenge going on called Project Cars at the Strip. this year in March, March 17th through the 19th at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. There's an event called Musclecars at the Strip, and really fun drag racing, autocross, car show, swap meet, all that fun stuff. At the Las Vegas Motor Speedway, if you've never been, is an amazing facility. Okay. Um, but this year, Mike Coffey reached out to me, asked me if the Roadrunner was going to be done in time. At the time, I wasn't really sure what I was, I didn't have a plan at the time. But he basically called me out to this challenge, and then a bunch of our friends got involved. And because I know Phil Painter from Muscle Cars at the Strip, I reached out to him, and we basically came up with Project Cars at the Strip. So it's going to be a little sideshow exhibition of the car show where a bunch of project cars show up. And I had an idea for the award, and it's badass, I got to say. And I thought it was very unique, and I thought it had never been done in the automotive scene at automotive events, but apparently it has. So that sucks because I thought I was onto something really cool. I think it's still going to be cool, and I'm still going to push to have it done, but I don't want to reveal it just yet until I know for a fact it's going to be done. But the award, if everything goes as I plan, is going to be pretty badass. Cooler than a trophy, I'll say that, in my opinion. In my opinion. Um, but the idea is if you have a project car, and you want a little motivation, we're challenging you to get your car running and driving and bring it to Las Vegas for Project Cars at the Strip. And I if you wanna race it, if you can pass tech, you're allowed to race. That's not an issue. You wanna autocross it, you can autocross it. You wanna put a for sale sign in it, you can put a for sale sign in it. Just get it to the car show. You do have to register for Muscle Cars at the Strip, so go to www.matslv, .com to register, and, it's gonna be a fun time, and the plan is to organize a cruise down the actual strip, Las Vegas Boulevard, one day after the show, or maybe both days, I don't know, because it's Friday, Saturday, and I think there's gonna be some action on Sunday. I'll probably be rolling out on Sunday just because I gotta drive home and be at work. Uh, and it's like a 20-hour drive or something like that, 16 to 20 hours. But, that's what Project Cars at the Strip is all about. And if you wanna join in the challenge, post a picture of your project on social media and just tag me and, Muscle Cars at the Strip, which is, their tag is at MATSLV. Um, and then obviously hashtag Project Cars at the Strip. I'm gonna get together, uh, our current participants and do a little video, so that'll be fun. Greg Fisher, buddy of mine, asked, "Plan to get the van or the Roadrunner drivable first?" The van is drivable as soon as it's running. So, the van's not really an issue. I don't really care about the van as much. I just had a bunch of parts laying in the way, and I didn't wanna leave, especially since winter's coming. And I opened the van, and I put the new roof vent in, and it does not leak water, but the van is still getting a lot of condensation in it, which is concerning to me. Um, so I'm gonna have to I don't wanna just let the van continue rotting. So I have to do a couple things on that, but the way I figure it, and if I could show you guys the schedule of how I have everything planned out, it should work out where the van is running and driving by the end of this year. Um, Safely is debatable. But, if the van is running and I can, because I need to bring my car trailer home, and the idea is to drive the van up onto the car trailer. That way, if the HOA decides to get picky, I can just move the van like 2 slots over. But, the Roadrunner will run and drive by Muscle Cars at the Strip. If I fail at that, I'll sell the fucking thing. I'll sell the van too. I'll sell everything. I'll stop the podcast. I need to get one of these projects done. Um, I get it. I was just talking about it, I think on the last podcast where I was like, man, I get it. Like nobody has faith in me at all. I wouldn't have faith in me either. So the Roadrunner is kind of like a must do. Dean, what's up, buddy? Is everybody doing a live right now? Mike says it's easy. Are you talking about swapping the? So correct me if I'm wrong. but on the 833 to swap um, tail housings, the whole assembly comes out, and you just have to pop it out. And I'm just going through a quick explanation. Take the housing, get the other one, pop it in. It's all good. The issue I had was if I put it all together and the bearings go out in a couple months, then or after I get the car running and driving, that would really piss me off. So I thought um, rebuilding it would be the best. If I get this money, rebuilding it would be the best move. Um, and I really because I don't really want to tear it apart again after I get it into the car. I would rather just have it all built so that I can enjoy it all summer long. So that was the idea. So we'll see how that goes. Um, I was really surprised. I did look on YouTube to see if there was a video of just swapping the housings. And maybe you're right, Mike. Maybe it's so easy nobody's made a video on it. Um, so I guess I could do that. I don't know. I don't believe it's easy to do while the 833 is still in the car. I've never done it, so I don't know. I know the fucking things are heavy as shit because they're cast iron. Um, but we'll see. Mike says run that shit. Agent 43D. Don't get it right, just get it running. Yeah, but see, the problem with that, Mike, is if I can afford to have the transmission rebuilt while it's out, why not just have it done? It's a week turnaround time at the transmission shop. So it would be perfect. And then peace of mind. Done. Don't have to worry about it. Alex says the 833 was an easy rebuild. Did mine just need a dummy shaft? Interesting. Alex, reach out to me in a PM. I got a couple questions. Jeremy says, sounds like you got a good amount of work before Matt's looking forward to that fire video. Oh, that first fire video. I was like, fire video. I was like, is he taking a shot at me because I'm working on a fuel system on this shitty van? um, there will definitely be videos. I started recording one today. See, this is another issue I'm dealing with. I got to figure out how I'm gonna tackle this. So my daughter likes to hang out with me in the garage. Okay, now I'm paranoid because this car is very nice, and I've explained to her, I've gotten down on her level, looked her in the eye, said, "Sweetie, don't touch the Roadrunner unless Daddy is right there and he's telling you to." But so she's hanging out with me, and it's like every 2 minutes she needs something, or she wants me to watch her ride her bike. She's 3, so I get her attention span deal, but it's like, I had to tell my wife, look, it is very hard to get anything done when she's right there, and I'm worried every second I don't have an eye on her that I'm gonna turn and she's gonna have a screwdriver just pounding the car. Like, but I want her to be involved, but right now she's too young to understand anything. So it's like, just watch Daddy. But it's like, she's 3, so her attention span just isn't there. But she absolutely wants to hang out in the garage. And I don't want to deny her that. So I'm trying to figure out how I can keep her out there and keep her safe while also keeping the car safe. It's kind of hard, but we'll figure it out. Mike, send me an offer, dude. I'll sell that thing before Vegas. If somebody gave me the right offer, because I'm not going to tell you what I want for the car. I'm curious to see what people would pay. Um, but I would not give it away. I know what the car's worth. Uh, well, let me put it this way. I know what I would pay for the car, and I know what I gave up for the car. So if somebody gave me the right amount of cash, like offered me the right amount of cash or the right trade, um, obviously, in my opinion, I traded up from the Mr. Norm truck. As much as I love that truck, I'd be a liar if I said that there wasn't another tin grill in the works. Uh, there's a little deal that I'm working on, but I had to put that aside because I got other shit I need to worry about right now. Um, But the Mr. Norm truck isn't the last 10 grill I'm gonna own, I'll tell you that. I need to send an email real quick to my guest. I got a little carried away there. Um, but yeah, so a buddy of mine that has a tin grill that I want, I reached out to him and was asking him about it, and he still has it and he's still willing to sell it to me. Uh, I offered him 500 bucks and I said, "How much did you want for that thing again? Was it 500 or 900? I don't remember." And he thought that was pretty funny. Um, but it's a short bed, two-wheel drive, black, three pedal truck. Needs a little bit of rust repair, but you know me, I like ratty shit, so it'll work out. Oh, and so I told him, look, I would love to take the thing right now, but for one, I'm waiting on a check. Two, um, I can't take on another project right now. In fact, I'd be a liar if I said that I wasn't about ready to sell this van, but I still have the goal of turning that into the van cave and the mobile podcast studio, so I can't sell it. Um, and it was only because I didn't want a distraction um, from the Roadrunner, but I know that selling the van, I would regret that. Worst case scenario, I just now that the tank is in the van and everything's going to be set up with the fuel system, I can just let that thing sit for the rest of the winter. I'm not too worried about it. It's a bare shell on the inside, so it's not like it's going to mold out or anything. I'll just get the moisture out of there um, every chance I get. But the Roadrunner, like I said, I was looking at it and I was like, okay, this isn't that bad. You know, the list, there's less than 100 things I need to do, and that's all basically Lego type shit, bolted up. You know, I'm sure there's going to be some shit along the way, but I know the car's going to run. I know the car's going to drive. There's a couple sketchy things on the front suspension that I don't like, so I'm just gonna get that together. This fucking guy, Mike. Um, Johnny Mopar's in the house. The other Johnny Mopar, no H. Johnny Mopar's in the house. Um, Dutch guys, nah. I think you need to stay racing, dude. Screw YouTube. What's up, Mike? Hell of a painter, right out of Dallas, Texas. Skidmark says it's a 25-hour drive to Vegas. What's up from Minnesota? Braden from 66 Salvage. What's up, dude? How's it going, man? Um, so yeah, my friend Bill Adams is probably going to be joining us here shortly. Let me see. Bill reached out to me actually recently, and he called me out for not having a podcast recently, and I've just been super busy with work, my kid, and then the windstorm we had that blew over my fence. I had just a nightmare of shit. Um, but he asked if I wanted to talk about old school Mopar stuff, like early day Mopar stuff, and I said sure because I don't know very much about it. Um, and he's president of the National Chrysler Club, so it'll be fun. I know he went to SEMA too. I'd like to talk about SEMA a little bit because I didn't go this year, and then he's also involved with Musclecars at the Strip, so I'd like to talk to him about that. So he should be joining us soon. And once I'm done chatting with him, I'll open the chat up, and if anybody wants to join me, um, or us, depending on if Bill wants to stick around or not, that'll be fun. Um, but a couple people have reached out to me and giving me some shit about the Roadrunner and kind of calling me out, kind of like Mike is, just ribbing me a little bit about you're never gonna finish it, all this shit. I love that energy. uh, because I know I can. If I fail, it's gonna be because I failed at doing something easy. Because all the hard shit on the car is done. Like I said, I have where is it? I have a giant booklet, or a manila folder of all the receipts for this car and what has been done. And the engine is the least of my worries. The car's gonna run. I got no problem with that. Um, so Joe's Mopar mess is in the house. Chris, have you seen Ruben's video today? Yeah, actually, I love so Ruben from Muscle City Madness did a video from the battle in Verona or Battle of Verona. Is it Battle in Verona, Battle of Verona, Battle at Verona? Anyways, it's at the Bermuda drag strip, the Verona drag strip. Johnny Mopar, Jeremy from Sort of Stock Mopars, Ruben, the Garage in this zone, and Joe's Mopar mess. And who else was down there? Uh, a bunch of people were down there, and I know someone else was down there. I forget who. Uh, Damn it. Anyways, um, Joe's Mopar mess is in Ruben's video, and he's wearing an orange hoodie, and it says "No Mopar Left Behind." That's my hoodie, dude. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate the support, buddy. And Ruben was talking about how uh, he mentioned that I don't even have to be there because somebody I know is representing down there at the track, and he was joking about going to duct tape and everybody going, "Oh, hey, are you Chris from Talking Mopars?" Uh, which I thought was pretty funny. Bill is in the house. Um, let's get him on there. So yes, Joe, I did see Ruben's video. I was laughed. That video was hilarious. I love that video. I had to show my wife the end part where he's talking about, "Oh, you're Chris from Talking Mopars." Yeah, that's funny. Let's see if Bill. I don't see his screen up. Let me see if he pops up. There he is. Bill, can you hear me? I don't know if it's I was having connection issues earlier, so I don't know if it's me or Bill. Um, if you see my uh screen get a little bit messed up in the chat, let me know, please. Bill,
Chris,
can you hear me?
yeah,
All right, perfect. What's up, buddy?
much. How you?
Good, good, man. Where are you at right now? Your screen's black. I can't see you.
In my shop.
Okay. Let's see here. Are you on your phone on the computer?
iPad.
Oh, okay. Um, well, you're blacked
What?
out, but that's okay. We can hear you.
Probably better anyway.
What's happening?
Not much. I have a face for radio.
I've been told the same thing, so don't worry about it.
Should I? Is there a way to turn on the cam?
If you go down, I believe on your end, you can go to. Do you have settings? Can you see settings?
No.
Okay, there should be a way. Maybe clicking on the three dots on your name or by your name, and there will be there should be a way to enable your camera.
Settings. Okay.
So, and there should be a little section that says camera.
Got it.
Okay, and then you should be able to use the camera on your iPad. You might have to cycle through a couple of them to see which one's working.
Okay.
So cycle through until you see if any of them work. If not, we don't have to see your face. It's a little weird talking to a black screen, but that's all right.
Uh. Yeah, it doesn't seem to want to work.
All right, that's okay. Bill, you reached out to me because you've been a guest on the show before. So I guess for those of you that don't know Bill, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody who you are, how long you've been into Mopars, and tell us all what's in your collection, because you've got a pretty awesome collection of Mopars.
Well, let's start off when I first heard about you a couple of years ago. Um, there's a big contingent of Mopar faithful around the Central Valley, California area.
Yeah.
Um, Mike, my buddy Mike, he just moved to North Carolina. He sent a lot of stuff into you.
Like listener stories?
Yeah, listener stories.
Okay.
Uh, anyway, um, so I binged a bunch of your early episodes and thought this was pretty cool. And then I think I reached out to you a couple times, just said, "Hey, like what you're doing, keep it up."
Yeah.
Um, and then I've been helping Phil with formerly Mopars at the Strip, now Musclecars at the Strip, since its inception. My family has since it started in '02, I think. And so I think we reached out to you, didn't I, to say, "Hey, you want to come to the event?"
Yeah.
And you said, "Yeah, that sounds great." Um, didn't sound like it took much of an excuse to get you to Vegas.
No, it never does.
So, and of course, I've always, everything. I've just been a Chrysler fanatic from birth. Um, seriously, my father was one of the founding members of the WPC, or the Chrysler Club, back in the late '60s. I was came off the assembly line in 1970 and was brought home from the hospital in my father's '39 Chrysler Royal Windsor Hayes Coupe, which is a very rare semi-custom coupe that was built in '39, of course. Um, it's Anyway, so I came home right from the hospital in that, and just grew up going to wrecking yards and doing car stuff. Those were the best, in California, contrary to popular belief, wasn't always nuts. Um, and it was a great place to go on car tours, car events, and it was always Chrysler and always Mopar all the time. Now, I'm not just a Mopar guy because that's what I grew up doing, although that's true.
Yeah.
There are there are valid reasons why we like Mopar Chrysler. Chrysler was always the engineering company, and in fact, if you listen to any of the enthusiasts that have big collections, like Jay Leno, they talk about Chrysler is always the company that brings a lot of engineering firsts and fantastic things to the table. One of the things that I've always liked about uh, Chrysler Mopar is they've always, because they haven't always been the largest on the block, they've always got to prove themselves. So they're always pushing the envelope. Um, so in everything they've done right from their onset in 1924, and in various times over their history, the Airflow, the Chrysler 300, the the Hemi, uh, the wing cars, um, the Viper, the Hellcat. They've somehow managed to stay at the forefront of innovation and engineering by pushing the envelope. And if Chrysler had a fault comparing it to other early early car companies, there was not a I didn't see that there was a prevailing mantra or a corporate culture that was really left by Walter P. Chrysler. But in my opinion, the prevailing what they've always brought to the table, and somehow they've been able to do it, is pushing the envelope.
Yeah.
And so, but anyway, that's a hell of a run-on sentence.
No, man, that's fine. One thing I've always said about I totally agree with you. It seems like a lot of the people that I know that are hardcore racers and have really delved into the technical aspects of Mopars. The engineering aspect is definitely brought up quite a bit, um, and the lengths they've gone um, to have good stuff, and especially with like in the early days, um, so much technology. I think what was the car with the first computer?
Car with the first computer.
Yeah, I thought that Chrysler had one of the first cars with a computer in it. I
Well,
could be.
in the 70s, of course, Chrysler experimented with fuel injection in '58, which was
That's
uh,
right. Is fuel
fraught,
injection in '58.
fraught with disaster. All Chrysler's so the difference, some successful fuel injection, and Chrysler experimented with mechanical fuel injection. Um, but the Chrysler system ultimately was sold to Bosch of German engineering fame, and went on to become the famous Bosch mechanical fuel injection system that Mercedes used for so many years successfully. So, although the initial trials in '57 and '58 with Chrysler were proved disastrous, they all got recalled. All the '58 fuel injection cars. Um, the ultimately the system was again it was Chrysler's engineering that put that together. And Chrysler had a lot of engineering firsts.
Yeah.
So to finish, who I am, I don't. Um, so I am now the current president of the WPC Club, the Chrysler Club, which we like to say is the world's largest Mopar club, although I'm not sure if that's true anymore. Yeah,
It's worldwide, right? It's not just because I called it the National Chrysler Club, but I'm pretty sure it's worldwide.
yes, it is.
Okay.
We have regions in Europe, in
Okay.
Australia. We've got just over 3,000 members,
Oh wow.
and at one point in time we were at 5,000 members.
Okay.
Although, um, and I'm trying to help bring it back. Um, there was a period of time clubs go through a lot of ups and downs, and as much as I uh, dislike the ego-driven politics that are seem to be uh, in a lot of clubs, I don't see any other mechanism or any other entity out there that's poised to preserve the history.
Yeah.
So that's why I stay involved and passionately in clubs, even though again the pomp and circumstance, Robert's Rules of Order, the board of directors, all that stuff seems a little overbearing.
Sure.
But if you want to do things officially and preserve things officially, you have to have a structure set up. So, anyway, on to Chrysler Engineering. So, the old joke in Chrysler Engineering in Chrysler was that Chrysler had, comparing Chrysler to GM, that Chrysler had as many people in engineering as GM did in styling, and vice versa. Um, so they were, when Walter Chrysler created or opened, turned Maxwell into Chrysler Corporation in 1925, he had what he called the Three Musketeers: Zeter, Skelton, and Breer, three engineers that came with him that had been following him for a couple years, and they were active in Chrysler engineering up through the '60s, and that was the secret sauce, in my opinion.
Okay.
Not only that, but Chrysler himself um, he was a railroad man. Um, he actually ran Buick from 1916 to 1920, I think.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yep. He famously walked into William Durant's office, who ran GM, and said, "You're going to pay me $1 million a year, or I'm walking out the door."
I like the gusto.
Exactly. It's much akin to today's ego-driven CEO. That the CEOs of the industrial age were larger than life. I mean, these
Yeah.
guys, uh, you know, certainly pioneer captains of industry. So he walked into William Billy Durant's office and said, "You're going to pay me $1 million a year, And Billy Durant said, "Get the hell out of here, Chrysler. You'll never have another job in this industry." So, um, anyway, so since the onset, he was always very attuned to the engineering, um, and setting up the. He was the guy that the bankers used to send in to rescue companies.
Okay. When did Chrysler get into racing?
Chrysler got it well. So the first Chrysler, um, there are a few different models, but the first in 1924, Chrysler was a model of Maxwell, and then in 1925, when Chrysler Corporation uh, came around, Maxwell was a model of Chrysler. But the first Chrysler was called a B70, and it stood for the first models had a number assigned to them. Like it was a B70, so it was a 70 mile an hour car. It was
Okay.
the first production car with hydraulic brakes. So, and some of my classic car friends tried to tell me, no, Duesenberg had hydraulic brakes before that. Yes, but Duesenberg wasn't exactly a car that normal people could afford. So, Duesenberg would be like comparing a Yugo to a Ferrari.
Yeah.
So, um, so the anyway, Chrysler Racing got started almost immediately because the racers thought, holy cow, here we go with a car that'll do 70 miles an hour off the showroom floor, and it has hydraulic brakes. So and so they started racing almost immediately, but in in 1925, I believe, in 26, 27, and 28, Chrysler actually raced at Le Mans. So, and they in 1928 they finished second and third behind a Bentley.
Oh wow. So they were pretty successful.
Extremely successful, and I don't think that's been matched by any other American manufacturer
Wow.
since till just recently. So, in fact, Louis Chevrolet, Chevrolet's namesake, um, who sold his part in the company, raced a Chrysler or paced the Chrysler, the Indy 500, in a Chrysler Model L80, which was the first Imperial in 1926. And then, of course, the Airflow won all the land speed. It was the first car designed in a wind tunnel. They actually commissioned, I think it was Orville Wright, to help them construct a wind tunnel to test the car
Wow.
of Wilbur Wright, the Wright brothers
Okay.
who invented the airplane. So,
Yeah, Chrysler has a very storied history, and admittedly, I don't know much pre-Max Wedge era. I don't even know that much about the early '60s Mopars,
well,
so it's always interesting to delve into that stuff.
some of the neatest history, of course, is the Chrysler 300. Of course, that came out in 1955.
Yeah.
So the 300, it was called the Chrysler 300 because it had basically 1 horsepower per cubic inch, which was a feat, again, not accomplished until then.
Yeah. First muscle car. It's argued that it's the first muscle car, right? The 300.
I think it's the first muscle car because
Yeah.
it was the first car that was purposely built for essentially racing.
Yeah.
And it dominated NASCAR in 55 and 56. Dominated. There's a guy named Carl Kiekhofer of Mercury Outboards fame up in Wisconsin area um, that had 2 professional teams, and he really pioneered the professional NASCAR teams that you see today. He did with Chryslers in 55, 56, and then he dominated so bad he got out of NASCAR racing because he'd been he'd accomplished everything he wanted to. And his autobiography. He was an engineering guy. In his autobiography, he called it the Iron Fist. Tells you a lot about his management style. Uh, if his executives showed up without a Chrysler product, they were fired. So the 300 came out initially with, of course, the 331 Hemi, 2 4-barrels, solid lifters, um, it, 2 4-barrels in 1955.
Wow.
Now, I think Chevy Corvette started experimenting with stuff. It was the first Corvette in 1953, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
53 or 54. I think it was 53.
They were all kind of dabbling with it, but Chrysler really, with the 300s. Um, and then, of course, in '56, you started having the DeSoto Adventures, the Plymouth Furies. You started getting a lot of performance cars. And then, of course, by the time 1960 came around, you had, of course, '59, they went to the wedge from the Hemi, the first generation Hemi, to the wedge engine. Um, uh, and then in '60 and '61, the first Max wedge was in '62, I believe. The 413 Max wedge.
That sounds right. Yeah.
I think it was in '62. So by that time, they were starting to make a big scratch in drag racing. Um, so there was Pontiac, I think the '61 Pontiac, and the Max wedge Mopars were the only factory cars that were dominating at the drag strip. But then the 409 Chevys started coming in. But by the time, then the Max wedge Mopars just dominated until, of course, 1965, when the Street Hemi hit the ground running. And of course, it came out in '64, I believe, as a race motor, and then in '65 and '66, you could have got it in starting in cars.
Yeah, that's one thing I've always appreciated about Chrysler is their racing campaigns. It seems like they were always like at the top of the heap.
Well, the early 300s, I'm surely you've seen the long ram cars. I'm not talking the cross ram. The cross rams where the carburetors sit diagonally on top of
Mhm.
the intake manifold. Now the long rams came out in 1960. Um, came out on cars in 1960 in the 300F, and then of course the Plymouth had what they called the Sonoramic, where the long ram 383s. Then you had a Dodge that had a D500 with a long ram. They had them on I think 361s.
Oh yeah, on the industrials.
No, the 361 was a big block Mopar. It was a B block from '59 to I think about '65.
That's
360
right. That's right.
would have got the 361, say, in your Chrysler Windsor or your
Okay.
Newport. It was like the starting, the predecessor of the 383.
Okay.
Okay, so but the 300s had the long rams where the carburetors sit way out over the valve covers.
Okay. Yeah.
You've seen those, right?
Yeah.
So that came out in 60 to 60, 60 and 61. 62, the 300H had inline fours again.
That's
And
right.
63 and 64, they were long rams, but they called them the short rams because they were a little bit shorter. They were tuned differently. And now the exhaust manifolds on those, you've seen Max Wedge exhaust manifolds, how they come way up and they're pretty bad looking. They
Yeah.
sweep down, they come up top and then they sweep down. Well, in the letter cars, the Ram letter cars in '63 and '64, you had the cast iron. They literally looked like headers that went down, and then they had heat risers that had to come up under the ram underneath the carburetors to warm the carburetors up enough so it wasn't so damn cold blooded. Um, but you had these Ram cars that came out in '60 through '64 that were just badass, um, and my father says still to this day he had a ride in a 64 300K convertible with a short ram, uh, and he said when he kicked down on the freeway, it was unbelievable.
Wow.
They weren't really off the line cars. They weren't tuned for that. They were tuned for more highway driving. Um, but the 300s were called the bankers hot rods because they all had leather interior, power windows, power seats. A lot of them had air conditioning, but they had this badass power plant in them that again it enabled them to dominate NASCAR, starting in NASCAR, and then they won the flying mile competition at Daytona Beach, which used to be the speed test that everybody you know sought in up through '63, I think. So they were dominating in racing through until NASCAR started sanctioning. Really, they dominated racing.
Yeah, that's and, NASCAR seems to be a very controversial subject when brought up with Mopar guys.
Yeah, and that would be a fascinating story to vet because I think Lee Petty won the first. Um, he won the first Daytona 500, which was on the sand,
Mhm.
and he drove Hemi Dodges back in the 50s. And of course, back in the early Hemi, Dodge, DeSoto, and Chrysler all had different Hemis.
Yeah.
And Lee Petty did that, and then by the time Richard Petty won the Daytona 500 in '64 and '65, I think, with a Hemi car. But I believe, and I'm not real good on NASCAR history, but the Chrysler, the Petties, and Chrysler was always pushing the envelope, and I think that pissed the France family off. So since then, for whatever reason, there's just always been a rift with NASCAR to the point where was it in '65? Richard Petty actually stopped, boycotted NASCAR and went drag racing.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
the '65 Barracuda that Richard Petty drag raced. So
I I when did I it wasn't I didn't learn about his drag racing stuff until quite recently actually. Um and it caught me off guard. I was like, "Really?" I didn't even realize it, but that was pretty cool to hear that the king of NASCAR drag racing.
that's why I'm just fascinated by the history of it all. If you can't tell,
That's awesome.
of course, the early Chrysler history and Walter Chrysler's history himself is just fascinating. He was well on his way to. He was the youngest ever manager of a locomotive roundhouse.
Really?
He grew up in Ellis, Kansas, and he went into the railroad business. And then he thought he was making $100,000 a year, like in the early 1900s, in the railroad
Wow.
as a
Wow.
young, and he was doing pretty well. And then I think it was it 1908. He took out a loan and bought a locomobile, which was an early classic, which was a big expensive car. He took out a loan and bought this locomobile. And the story is that he took it apart and put it back together like 20 times and wrecked it 2 or 3 times. He didn't know how to drive the damn thing. But he was so fascinated with the engineering in the car business that he took a massive pay cut, supposedly almost got a divorce, um, and went to work in the car business in 1911. And then pretty soon he was running Buick at one point, and then he became the guy that the bank sent in because there were all these startup fledgling car companies, and a lot of them didn't make it, and a lot of them they had typical management issues. They may have had brilliant people running them, but they couldn't save money. They couldn't against anything to save their lives. So, so Chrysler was the guy that was sent in to look at something and see if it could be salvaged. So he went into multiple companies. Willys was one of them. Uh, uh, in fact, he made an early bid to buy Willys at that point in time. It was in Englishtown, New Jersey. In fact, the engineers, Peter Skelton and Breer, started working for him at that time. He stole them from Studebaker, um, and he made a bid to buy Willys and lost.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yeah, but then, of course, successfully made the bid to buy Maxwell in 1924.
Wow. What a
So,
crazy history. And here we are talking about electrification. You know what I mean?
well, nothing, what's old is new. What's new is there's nothing new under the sun, as that saying goes, right?
Yeah.
So electrification uh, was a big deal around. I think the pre World War One cars that was a big deal. They had a lot of electrified cars back then, and um, it just never took. There was a period of time where everything was electric. Um,
Didn't the
but
government come in on a lot of that stuff and like shut it down because of the oil industry and stuff?
I don't know.
Hmm.
Um, like it sounds like some shenanigans with the Rockefellers and all the
Yeah,
oil back then.
for
I'm not
sure.
sure what the reason for was it, but I do know that the industry um, went through an electric car phase already. It's gone through a couple of them, and here we are again.
You went to SEMA, right?
Yes,
So you got to see the Banshee.
yes.
So tell me about SEMA. I didn't get to go to SEMA this year, as you know. Um, I feel like this year would have been better to go than last year after seeing some of the Mopars that showed up.
Yeah,
Um, do you think that this year was better for Mopars than it was last year?
yeah. I think it was.
Yeah.
Just because last year was such a cluster, everybody's still.
Yeah.
All the large corporations, of course, are run by lawyers, and so every lawyer is going to be concerned with liability. So some of them stayed out of the limelight uh, because of liability from COVID still.
Yeah.
But this year it was back on, and it was neat to see that Mopar had. Of course, they usually in the South Hall there,
Hmm.
but then this year they had a big display in Central Hall where Dodge.
Oh,
So they had two big displays. They had the Mopar booth um, back stuck in the tire place where all the tires are. But then they had, the Central Hall where GM usually was. GM wasn't even there, nor was
wow.
Ford, which tells you a lot about where the industry is right now.
Yeah. Wow. So what was your opinion on what Dodge brought?
I'm not an electric car guy.
Sure.
Not my deal. Um, I think it's fantastic that Dodge hopefully continues to still push the envelope on that, and I hope that's successful. I'm not. Uh, it's just not my. You know, I
Sure.
like the rest. I think it's great. It's fine. I'm glad to see him out there. Um, the only the only negative thing I have to say about electrification is I think it's an awesome choice, but the moment you make that the only choice, we're going to have words.
100%. I really wouldn't have a problem with it if they still offered everything with Hemis and uh, once you start killing off all that stuff and saying, all right, electric's the only thing you can get, it's like, whoa. And I
Well,
think that's the way they're headed.
they don't. The government's certainly obviously incentivizing them to do that. Um, and I can't say that I agree with that, but that's not a
Yeah.
topic for another day. Um, but I know we do know a couple of the designers on the head designers, There's a guy named Chris Piscatelli, who's the head exterior designer for Dodge.
Yeah.
His dad is on the board for the Chrysler Club, and Chris grew up going on car tours. He's from New Jersey. I know his dad well, and he grew up just like the rest of us, just nuts about Mopars. And he still is to this day. In fact, he daily drives a 54 Plymouth to work.
Really?
He's the head exterior designer.
Oh, that's cool.
So, and there's another guy named Dan Zimmerman, who I just met recently, and he's another old school Mopar nut that just loves to sit around, talk cars, bench race, and wrench on old stuff. But
Nice.
the amount of the talent, the sketches they do, and just these guys are truly living their dream as a car kid.
Oh yeah.
I want to design cars, so they get up, they go, then they go to work every day, and they run teams of designers designing cars, and it's just hats off to those two guys. And I'm fortunate that the Chrysler Club has some pretty deep roots into many of our board members are retired Chrysler folks. Our treasurer, his grandfather worked for Maxwell back in the early 1900s,
Oh wow.
and so he's got. Uh, in fact, it's great. It's great. It's very humbling being around some of these guys because he's got a 64 300K convertible 4-speed car. And of course, in Mopar world, you can never say never. And I've been at a couple of 300 groups events, and they said, "Oh, they never built that car." I said, "Oh, yes, they did." That was the head parts manager for Chrysler. Is owns it, was the original owner, and ordered it brand new for himself. So, yeah, they did.
uh the little rumors in the Mopar community about cars that were never built is kind of funny to me.
It is funny.
You hear it a lot.
You learn really quick to stay humble. You can never say never.
Yeah. It does make me feel good to know that there are some hardcore Mopar guys that are still within the company.
Me too. It really does.
Yeah.
Because you wonder sometimes, oh my gosh, how could they do this to their heritage? And now I don't know Tim Kaniskis, but I know some people that know him. Tim is the head of Dodge,
Yeah.
SRT, and supposedly he's just a true blue car guy. So, um, it's good to know that those people are still there. So, I think that we could probably be rest assured that if they could continue building the Hemi car, they would. Doesn't sound like that's on the again. Just the industry's headed a different direction,
Yeah.
and they want to stay relevant, so they stick with it. And well, I'll ride my gas guzzlers to the end.
Yeah, and I'm sure if you got any one of those guys, including Kaniskis, in a private room where you knew it was off the record and you asked him, "Hey, you know, how do you feel about this really?" I'm sure he would say, "God, I would love to keep the Hemis around." I'm sure.
Yeah,
Um,
but they also have to. You gotta. They gotta stay with the times.
yeah.
They they um, uh, and things change, and that's okay. But I don't have to change with them.
What did you think about the Banshee? What are your impressions on it? Because it's when you look at pictures of a car and video of a car online, it's a lot different than actually seeing the thing in person.
Um, well, much like the Challenger, when I first saw it, the new Challenger, it's a big car.
Yeah.
Um, I love the subtle, the Fratzog, the lighted up Fratzog. I love
Yeah.
some of the subtle hits, some of the. You can see some heritage design in a lot of that. What they call the double diamond, I think, where the door and you've almost got two body lines on Chargers, which is one of
Hmm.
the on the the second gen Chargers. Um, I think they tried to pay homage to that. Um, the hood, I wasn't sure what to think of the hood spoiler thing at first, but I think it's a good looking car. I think it comes close to the second gen Charger.
Yeah,
I think it's phenomenal what they've done with the lighting on them. Like the new, all the new Challengers. The LED is just badass.
yeah, I do like the LEDs.
Although I must say, there's nothing more badass than an original '68 Charger. Um, but um, I, I don't know. It's not it's not something I'm ever going to get. I don't think. You never
Sure,
know. Um, so I don't. My opinion of it is not. Um, I hope they do well. I hope it does
sure.
well for Chrysler's sake, for
Yeah,
not Chrysler, for Dodge's sake. Chrysler, unfortunately, is relegated to a mate at this point. Um,
yeah.
so, speaking of Chrysler, did you know that Chrysler was actually the number two automaker from 1939 until about 1953?
Second to Ford, I imagine, right?
No, second to GM.
Oh yeah, yeah. You'd be right. Yeah.
Bigger than Ford. Chrysler was
Wow,
actually bigger than Ford from 39 to 53.
wow. I didn't know that.
Yes, they were. They were the number two automaker.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. So of course you had Chrysler, Dodge, DeSoto, Imperial, Fargo. Fargo, of course, is the Canadian Dodge.
Yeah,
Um, but anyway, as far as the future of, of the make, I don't know. We'll see what happens when the Banshee comes out. Apparently, the the real Charger and this one are slightly different.
oh really?
This is a concept car. Remember, this is not the real one.
Okay,
But from what I understand, the real run is pretty damn close.
okay. It scares me when because I I- I've been pretty critical about the car in general. Um, one thing that I can't get over, and I wish I was there to see it in person, is the roof line towards the back, especially since it looks like a hatchback. It kind of reminded me of the 66, 67 towards the back of the car, like the
Yeah,
roof line.
yeah.
Um, I really wish I could have gotten a chance to see it in person. That way I could make a better um, assessment of what I think. But I mean, they could have done a lot worse. But I think obviously, there's always room for improvement. I think they could have done better, and it scares me to think that that's just the concept because the concepts are always a little bit wilder, in my opinion. So I'm like, gosh, I wonder what they're gonna mute on that thing. um, but I guess we'll see.
What I did like that they did with this the one at SEMA versus the one that they originally debuted was they put drag radials on all four tires.
Yeah.
It really looked pretty cool.
Did you get to hear it?
No, I did not hear the electronic whatever it was.
Yeah.
Well,
Um,
take that back. See that, Chris. I don't know if I heard the car or I heard a recording of it. so so yeah, they started it up and had it playing in the loudspeakers. But
okay.
I don't. But are you really hearing the car? Or are you just
Yeah, that's probably the most controversial thing about the car, aside from the fact that it's electric, is the way it sounds. Um,
well? There's probably more to come out on that because, from what I understand, it's not it's not completely a recording. It's supposedly they've figured out a way to modify the sound, the electric sound, through a few filters. And so, yes, I don't think that's the real sound of the electric motors, but I think they've filtered it somehow and made it sound like that. So it's a bit of a hybrid, from what I understand.
yeah, from what I understood, uh, after the first unveiling of it, it was my understanding that it was the natural sound amplified, but
Okay, yeah, and with some filters to make it sound a little beefier.
yeah, they wanted it to sound like a cat, which I thought was funny because I'm like, man, and I know that's going to be a subject of contention. making the electric car sound. But I mean, they're doing what they can with what they got, I guess. I would like to be honest, I'd like to drive one and just see how, because I haven't driven a Tesla, I haven't driven anything electric. I'm curious, but it's nothing beats the sound of an American V8, in my opinion.
No, but it's going to be a different driving experience. I don't know that because I am familiar with the torque of electric motors.
Yeah,
That's instant and awesome.
yeah,
But the corresponding sound and the I don't know. That's what I like about the original car. As much as I love the new cars too, the original ones are you just the sound and the shaking, you know there's just nothing like the originals.
no,
Um,
absolutely not.
so,
Um,
and I don't think they want to try to make something like the originals, something a little better.
yeah,
Uh, but that we'll see what happens. If the world does indeed go all electric, they're going to be at the forefront. If it doesn't, well, giant face plant.
yeah, we're gonna see. I I wish him the best, but I if you take away the Hemi out of production vehicles, I just hope to God that they don't stop the production of the crate Hemis, because I still am a fan of resto mods and swapping modern tech into old cars, because I really do think with this push for electrification, the pessimist in me sees them taxing guys like us to drive our old gas guzzling carbureted cars. You know what I mean?
That's gonna well, see, I live in a state that's saying they want to do that, and your state isn't far behind mine.
Oh no, not at all. It's right there.
So, yeah, no, I can see that happening, um, but then again, I also do some advocacy work at the state house when it comes to old car legislation, which is why I'm involved with SEMA to some degree,
Cool.
because uh, it's um, they don't. Most of the lawmakers, certainly in California, don't realize that. Hey, uh, yes, we have good weather, but that also means that every weekend, somewhere in California, there are multiple car shows, and those
Hmm.
car shows, over the course of a year, raise millions of dollars for charitable projects.
Yeah.
And so, and it's so much part of the culture that I don't think we have to remind them occasionally that it's not something they want to screw around with. So I don't think that um, I don't think they'll try to ban, um, uh, but I would not put it past them to try to regulate further old cars due to the supposed emissions.
Yeah, that's they attack the emissions, and then lately it seems like I've seen them attacking the sound of cars.
Yeah,
Um
yeah, that's a big. Well, that's in fact, SEMA's done a great job legislatively getting some of these sound ordinance overturned in various parts of the. Um, uh, so it's they've been moderately successful getting some of these sound ordinances overturned, but yeah, that stuff you know is we got to stay alert. But that's why again it's and unfortunately they're the only ones left to do it. SEMA is the only ones that's really kind of taken the bull by the horns and uh, uh, putting in the resources to make sure that they monitor this stuff at every state. And to be honest, they do a fantastic job.
Yeah, thankfully they're around, because I've been hearing some crazy stories about factory cars, not even muscle cars. You're talking about Japanese, like I believe it was a Hyundai that has some sort of sport mode, and the guy got his car impounded because it was over the legal decibel limit, and they wouldn't give him his car. It was just a giant hoopla, and it was a factory car. It wasn't even modified.
Well,
So,
one of the things that SEMA has done, it's just, I think last year, the year before that, they opened up a studio or a garage in Detroit, so they can test. So they're essentially a third party, yes, a third party interested in aftermarket, but they can run their own tests on these vehicles. So when you got the regulators come out, like California CARB, California Air Resources Board comes out and says, "Hey, we're going to limit this car, or we're going to regulate it because it does this, this, and this." If SEMA has the facilities to test that separately, they can go back to them and oppose that. So it's a big deal that SEMA is able to put a laboratory essentially in Detroit so they can test for their own purposes separately in Detroit.
Wow.
So again, I can't say enough. And if you ask any SEMA executive, they'll say their biggest concern and their biggest worry moving towards the future is the legislative framework and the regulatory framework for aftermarket parts and manufacturers, which affects us all. Some,
Yeah.
they all, um, you, they're all affected. So, but anyway, um, on our Chryslers, you asked what cars I have,
Yeah.
and like every other, Mopar nut, I started out just a fanatical for muscle cars. The '71 Cuda was one of my dream cars. I had a buddy in Oregon. I lived in Oregon for a short time. I was in the military for a lot of years. Um, um, but then I lived in Oregon for a while, and I had a buddy with a 68 Charger. Jeff Wyford's his name. He still got the car. He had a Hemi in it. It was candy apple red, and it was lowered. And he had the exhaust pointing at the ground. And this was in the late '90s. And I'll tell you what, there wasn't you could cruise that car anywhere, and it was just intimidating. It was badass, and so that really cemented that image in my mind. But the only muscle cars, and then of course I got interested in the history and all the other cars, and yeah, some of the other cars may not be as fast and as noisy, but they all bring something different and a different driving experience, and just as rewarding
Yeah.
to the table. Muscle car I have now is a '69 Roadrunner convertible. It is supposedly the only convertible ever painted petty blue by Chrysler. Again, known to exist. Can never say never.
Yeah.
There's rumors of others, and hopefully they're out there. And I just got notice that car will be at McCacken next year.
Oh,
Obviously,
really?
it's a little late this year, but next year,
Oh, that's super cool. That makes me want to go next year.
got to do it.
Yeah.
Um, and then I've had a bunch of different muscle cars, Chargers, Challengers, but my Roadrunner convertible is what I have now. Then I have a few 300 letter cars. Um, I have a 300 Sport convertible with a 413 in it that we just. That's the one I road trip with my family a lot. Great road car. Um, and of course, the 60 to 62 Chryslers all had that bubble dash.
Yeah.
Have you seen it? The bubble dash with the
Mhm.
green, the light, the numbers that glow.
I finally saw one in person. My friend Gary Hergert has one, and
Yeah,
I saw it at a local car show earlier in the summer, and I was like, "That is the coolest."
the Elastin American lighting. It's got like 30,000 volts, no amperage, but a bunch of volts that run through the. It's the paint lights up on the gauges, and so the dash on the 60 to 62 Chryslers, it's got a big bubble dome over it. It's called the Astrodome,
Mhm.
and that with the green glowing numbers is just really, really cool looking. Um, then I have a 61 300G. I have two 300Hs. project cars. I have a 65 300L that is a driver. And then I have my 39 Chrysler Royal Windsor Hayes Coupe that I came home fresh off the assembly line. Now, unfortunately, I have it because I wish my dad still had it.
Sure.
And then I have a 1927 Model 72 Boattail Speedster,
Wow.
which is a recent acquisition, but it's pretty neat. In the early years, Chrysler offered a high compression head, called it the Red Head, instead of 5.2 to 1 compression. It's got 6 to 1 compression. So,
That's
but
funny.
it's a Model 72, so it would do 72 miles an hour. I have not got it operable totally yet, but I'm looking forward to checking it out.
Yeah.
It's going to be a different experience. But so I've had, I went through a phase where I liked the turbo Mopars for a while.
Yeah.
The Shelby cars. I had 3 or 4 those damn Maserati TCs.
Yeah. That was part 1 of my conversation with Bill. Part 2 is next on episode number 155. Thank you for listening. No Mopar Left Behind. There you have it, my friends. Another episode of Talking Mopars is in the books. For everything you need to know about the show, you know where to go, talkingmopars.com. And you can reach me by emailing Chris at talkingmopars.com or by leaving me a voicemail on my voicemail box at 209-28-MOPAR, and you just might get to hear yourself on the show. So keep sharing those Mopar stories with me and anything else that is on your Mopar-addicted mind. Special thanks to my friends at DIYHemi.com. For those of you that don't know, Blake has rebranded DIY Hemi, so although the website is still DIYHemi.com, DIY Hemi is now Sublime Technologies. So if you've been considering swapping a modern Gen 3 Hemi into your classic Mopar, then reach out to Sublime Technologies, get a hold of Blake, and tell them that I sent you. Blake has supported me from the beginning of this show, and I also support him in his mission to Hemi swap the world. Also, don't forget how important it is to keep your Mopar protected from the elements. If you need protection, don't wait. Head on over to TalkingMopars.com, click on the Affiliates tab, and go get your Mopar covered today. Before we shut this podcast episode down, if you want some Talking Mopars merchandise like t-shirts, hoodies, stickers, and more, check out the merch shop on TalkingMopars.com. I am working on some new merch. I said that on the last show, and I am going to let you guys know when that new gear is available. One final thing, if you'd like exclusive bonus episodes of the podcast as well as exclusive bonus videos, they are available only to my Facebook subscribers. Become a Facebook supporter today and get immediate access to those benefits as well as a monthly supporter giveaway. You can do all that by going to Talking Mopars Podcast on Facebook and clicking the subscribe button. That's it, my friends. Until we talk again, I am your host, Chris Albrecht, and that was Talking Mopars.
Thank you for listening to Talking Mopars, your direct connection to all things Mopar. Until next time, remember, no Mopar left behind.